Hello everyone again, it's Clozapine Fit and Lean. So in this video I want to essentially educate people around how calories are not calories. Okay? People that say a calorie is a calorie are wrong, okay, and they're part of the problem. Now, the reason for this is, yes, okay, I do concur that if you take a mole of something, okay, and you combust it, okay, and you use a bomb calorimeter basically to assess the combusted energy and to basically how can I say quantify to measure the thermal energy by using the bomb calorimeter. Yes, okay, in this situation, a calorie is genuinely a calorie. But your body is not just a simple bomb calorimeter. Okay, your body just isn't some crude thing, okay, that combusts fuel, okay, and you run on it like your body is a steam engine. Okay, this doesn't work. Right. If, for example, you go to the gym, okay, and you resistance train, okay, and you overfeed yourself in a controlled overfed state, so a caloric surplus with the intention to gain muscle size, is that calories, okay, from things like avocados, so monounsaturated fats in the avocados and other nutrition, okay, things like chicken breast, okay, or maybe a steak, okay, so some red meat, maybe nutrition that you would get from things like basmati rice, okay, these types of calories, its nutrition will be a completely different biological effect that happens in your body than, for example, attempting to overfeed yourself with the intention to gain muscle on things like beverages of sugary Coca-Cola, or for example things like these hyper-processed food items that contain trans fats and lots of sugar. The reason for this is that if you overfeed with, say, an avocado and some chicken breast, is these calories are basically used for cellular anabolism, essentially to grow tissue. In fact, most of the calories, if you say overfeed like a 300 calorie surplus this way, would go to building muscle mass. If you're eating things like donuts, okay, and you're eating things like sugary beverages like Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, this type of stuff, is these calories mostly do not build muscle tissue, they just get you fat, okay? They give you visceral and ectopic fat, which is a particularly dangerous place to store fat, okay? Now, how can I say? When you overconsume, okay, things like Coca-Cola, donuts, basically things that contain sucrose, okay, and sucrose is a disaccharide, okay, of glucose and fructose joined together by a glycosidic bond. Not only do these calories fail, okay, to build muscle, which they're unlike calories to say that come from things like avocados and chicken. Okay, what happens here is the fructose part of the sucrose and the fructose corn syrup. The fructose can't even be used essentially to carb load you. The fructose can't even be metabolized into glycogen storage. Okay, the fructose just is absorbed right through the small intestine, or the villi of the small intestine, through the portal vein into the liver. Or, as I've said in another video, all these disastrous processes happen. So basically, the fructose overwhelms the liver, okay, with substrate. Okay, what you have is basically upregulated fork head box protein 1, okay, which gives you this upregulated gluconeogenesis. IRS1, basically these genomic switches, this basically causes your liver to become insulin resistant. Okay, and what you also get is an aldehyde called glyceraldehyde, and the aldehyde is toxic. Okay, what you have is this cross-linking of proteins through the glyceraldehyde, which essentially gives you that substrate with enough duration of exposure of fructose syrup and sucrose and fructose. As I say, it gives you this, this substrate for non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, this accumulation of scar tissue in the liver. And also, what happens, I think it's pyruvate. Pyruvate overloads the mitochondrial TCA cycle, so the mitochondrial transcarboxylic acid cycle. Okay, and then what happens? You have citrate being shunted out of the mitochondrial TCA cycle into the cytoplasm of the liver cell, resulting in VLDL, so very low density lipoprotein, okay, which is a substrate for dyslipidemia and potentially heart disease, okay. You have free fatty acids, okay, which give you your muscle cell insulin resistance. We also see other things, so I think we see ApoB, and also what we get is what we call hepatic de novo lipogenesis, so basically a lipid droplet formation, which is your substrate for fatty liver disease. And also we see lipid droplet formation through what we call a pathway called JNK1, okay? So essentially a calorie is not a calorie, okay? And also, by the way, is in people that are of normal weight, okay, and consume what we would say normal amounts of calories, who almost exclusively eat processed food items and sugary beverages, so they have a diet full of fructose syrup and sucrose, is they may eat things like, for example, 2,000 calories a day over maybe a Big Mac burger, some sugary biscuits. They might have a bottle of Coca-Cola here or there, or maybe once or twice a day. And what happens here is this is actually a medically appropriated term. It's called TOFI, so thin outer, fat inner. So they might not have a waist circumference which is large, or subcutaneous fat, but their insides are gunked up full of visceral and ectopic fat, which is all inflammatory. And as I said, is once upon a time in another video, is once you have this fatty infiltration of the liver, which is it happens through the aforementioned biological reasons, is that basically your liver becomes insulin resistant, etc., and basically your body now really suffers from consuming these types of calories. Okay, so in terms of nutrition, okay, a calorie is not a calorie. In terms of biochemical, biological effects of the body, a calorie is not a calorie. Okay, your health, okay, your body composition, okay, if you're consuming, say, the same number of calories of junk processed food items versus whole, healthy, plant-based diets with a bit of meat here and there, okay, these are the types of diets which will keep you healthy. These other one with the fructose syrup, all this type of shit, that will keep you unhealthy. I just want to say as well, is I don't even believe to be that fructose and sucrose and fructose syrup are even foods. Okay, the actual definition, okay, of what the term food means is a substrate that a cell or organism can use for burning or growth. Okay, well, fructose, you can't use it for burning or growth of a cell or an organism. In fact, it actually causes mitochondrial dysfunction, so it's a poison. It's not a food. Okay, so if you're consuming things like trans fats, fructose syrup on a regular basis, with a large enough amount, so you're just eating junk foods, is you cannot just simply drop your calories of these junk foods down, okay, and lose a bit of weight and expect to be healthy, because it's not all to do with calories, it's not all to do with weight, it's to do with some of that, okay, as well as the healthy types of calories that you should consume, which are good for you, okay, which promote good body composition and health, metabolic health. The other stuff is detrimental to your body composition and your health. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. Okay, is basically a calorie in terms of nutrition for the human body is not a calorie. Okay, as I say, to wrap up, is a calorie if you're combusting a mole of this substance and measuring heat output with a bomb calorimeter. But as I've said to you, your body is not simply a bomb calorimeter. It does not combust things for energy. That would be incompatible with life. Okay, we have certain metabolic processes which give your body what we call ATP. Okay, so that's energy currency. Okay, a calorie is not a calorie in terms of nutrition. Okay, a big bottle of 2 liters of full sugar Coca-Cola is nowhere near anything like the nutrition that you would get from, for example, an equal number of calories of avocado and chicken breast with spinach, leafy greens and broccoli. Okay, completely different biochemical effect, completely different metabolic effect, biological effect, everything. Okay, so clozapine, vitamin, signing out. Boosh.